Good evening, everyone. I'll be starting here in a second. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Yes, I will start in 1 minute. Okay, thank you everybody for joining me. For you, it's probably in the evening. For me, it's early in the morning. And let's get started. My apologies, my computer has been slow this morning. Okay, so this presentation live event is about having faith in the fire and transforming you. And this is actually for Christians and people who are boldly wanting to step into something new, wanting to step into their power. This is not for people who are content with just sitting there and waiting for things to come to them without taking any action. This is for people that are called to do something more, called to do something amazing, and they just need the help just need the faith to take that first step and then to take step after step to help them understand what's really holding them back so that we can all enjoy the abundant life that we were called to live. Okay, so a little bit about me. So I'm originally from Maryland on the East Coast of the USA. I've went to NC State in North Carolina. I've worked for various chemical companies. I'm a chemical engineer by day, but when I am not doing my day job, this is what I enjoy doing, is empowering people, helping them, give them the tools to empower them so that they can walk into their abundance that essentially that God already has for them. And so how did I get here? So I had made like a list when I was a teenager that I wanted to, for example, I wanted to go to college. I wanted to work for certain companies. I wanted to go to a certain college. I wanted to study abroad. I wanted to work abroad. And I had gotten to the point where I had checked all the boxes. And you would think that when you check off all your boxes, that everything would be great in life. You would be happy, you would be fulfilled. But I got to that point and it wasn't so. And I realized there was this small part of me that wanted to do something else. However, I kept really giving, I guess, God the reasons why it couldn't be done and that it just wasn't for me, until one day I decided, well, what if, what if it could be done? What if, I could do that? So then I started on this journey of, okay, the people that are successful, like, well, success can mean different things to different people, but the people that did have success or were on the path that I wanted, what was the difference between them and me? And so I guess I always thought successful people did very specific things, such as maybe all successful people like sold real estate or something like that. So I was looking for, what each of them did that, so I could do that too. Maybe I needed to go sell real estate or something. However, what I learned is it's not that people do certain things, they just do things in a certain way. And so once I learned that, I said, oh, anybody could, but why is the path so narrow? And so I looked at different successful people, and it could be it was people that were fulfilled in what they were doing, and you can tell there was something about them. They were in alignment with something and with themselves. They weren't faking it. They were very authentic, and I learned some patterns between them. For one, they had really big goals. And so they weren't keen on thinking small. They had really big goals. Another thing that I learned about their path is they failed a lot on the way. So they may not have gotten it right all the first time. They followed their intuition. So they were guided by something on the inside of them and not so much on the outside. And then they had no idea where they were going most of the time. They just knew that they didn't want to be where they were at the time. And so the other thing is they tried a lot of different things until they found the one thing. And so I realized people that are really successful, they didn't really dabble with, like go over here and over. Sorry, 1 second. They didn't go over here and over there. They were pretty consistent in what they were doing. They kind of funnel things down. It was interesting. They actually did less. They actually did less. And the next thing is they worked really hard, but they had a lot of energy. They had a lot of zest. For me, I found patterns in my life. I was working really hard, but I was exhausted. And, I feel like they work just as hard or sometimes harder, but they were fulfilled. And another thing that struck me is a lot of times they didn't have the degree or the qualifications that you would think. And so, they might not have had all the money to go to all the prestigious schools either. And then when I looked at, other paths such as, Joshua, Moses, David, Nehemiah, Paul, I realized it was the same pattern, like the exact same pattern. Another thing is they went to uncharted territory that no one else had been to before. And at the time, like people actually thought they were crazy. And so I just started putting together this formula of, hey, these are parallels. There's something to it. There's some consistencies that I wanted to really delve into. And so that really brought me to this toolbox of faith, really, is, they did things in a certain way. And if you're not careful or looking at, how they're going about things, you could easily have missed it. But going through these, you'll see the consistencies that all of them really had. And it's also looking at, the people in the Bible, as well as some of the people that you may look up to that are very successful as well. And so this is really about transforming you and having faith in really the fire when you may be alone, when there's nobody else by your side to encourage you, when there are things happening that don't add up, that don't make sense, that are not logical, but there's just something internally that's guiding you to just keep going. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into these tools. And before I do, I just want to explain, I give the example of when Joshua and Caleb were, stepping into the promised land. And, there were only two of them. However, there were like 2 million Israelites. And it's like, what was the difference between Caleb and Jacob that actually walked into the land of milk and honey? And it's like, when I think about our abundance is, yes, there's milk for things that we need, and then also honey. Like God also wants us to enjoy it. And he actually told us like, hey, I have this for you. And, it may have been scary because the land looked like it had a lot of giants. It looked like, they would have to fight for it, which it did seem scary. But, living in the wilderness wasn't exactly a cakewalk at all either. And so we have a choice to make. We can either stay in the wilderness, or even some of the Israelites in the beginning, they actually wanted to go back to Egypt as slaves because it was more comfortable. It was what they were used to, rather than take the journey and the risk of taking this venture into the promised land. And it's like, while things may seem scary, or it may seem like, hey, I don't know, like there's just something rattling in your brain. Just know that it's also not that comfortable to be a slave and to be living in the wilderness either. And so we have a choice to make. We can live in our abundance that is right now unknown. It may seem very unknown, but do we want to just stick to what's known and what could be keeping us in captivity, or step into the unknown, which is where our abundance lives? And so we can make that choice. And it's not just, an abundance of just one thing. It's actually abundance in every area of your life are the things that we're going after. And it's things that maybe not things that, guided on your own, really your own ego, but things that you know that you are really called to do. Okay, so that brings me to the first toolbox, really. And so I'll be going through, really, there are 14. It may be shown as 12. But anyway, the first one is actually two of them. And I put them together because so I was reading Luke 17, and it's two powerful stories in one chapter that I just decided to put them together. I figured, you can't have one without the other. Um, I was just going based on, hey, like these two things happened very close to together. I'll just make sure I present them together. So in Luke 17, it talks about, the disciples were really grappling with themselves, and they asked, how many times do we forgive our neighbor? And Jesus said, as long as they, come to you and repent, you keep forgiving them, just keep forgiving them. And so, it's, of course, is written in scripture. And honestly, I've just met so many, and I've just read about so many successful people that as soon as they forgave that person in their lives that had been having like so much control over their subconscious, like things immediately turned around from them. So it's not only for, the disciples and Peter who immediately said, hey, like Jesus, now that you told me that, please strengthen my faith. And so what I'm learning like through this faith journey is, God's love for us is unconditional. He says like we don't have to work for it, like, but when it comes to faith, each time in the Bible, it gives us some conditions to exercise our faith, and one of them is forgiveness. I also read a story about Tyler Perry, who before he became big and famous, he would give plays to, he would give, present his plays to maybe 12 people. Like he didn't have a big crowd, but he just kept going. He would have jobs and then quit jobs. He wasn't making a lot of money until one day he decided to really confront his father. So a lot of the Medea plays came from a place of, he lived in a very abusive home. His father was very abusive to his mother. And, he was on this journey. He felt called to write these plays and help people deal with this domestic violence, but in a funny way. And, his really success turned around when he decided to confront his father. And then after, meeting with his father, he decided to forgive him. And he said, it's like something in his spirit just broke free. And then it's like immediately after that, he was kind of like rumbling in his dressing room before a performance where he thought he was going to, step in front of a 12-person audience again, like not have many sales. But he just so happened to look outside his dressing room and the line was around the corner. And I just like how in his story, he attributed to, the instant, that forgiveness came into his heart, like just a plethora of blessings just flowed through. And so this toolbox of faith, it may sound like simple things or things that we already know, but it's just helping us be more mindful of, hey, these are the things that are going to propel you forward. But if we're not careful, if we're not exercising them in a healthy way, these are the very things that are holding us back, that we may be forced to blame people around us, but it's actually an internal battle. So the other thing is being grateful. So in the same chapter of Luke, Jesus talks about, there were 10 lepers that were healed, but only one came back and said, thank you. And then Jesus said, your faith has healed you. And, these happen like back to back. And I just figured, presenting them together, like having one without the other, I didn't want to give, just a partial story, but it really elevates, it really elevates your energy when you are grateful and when you forgive. So, we can dabble in this area of shame and guilt, or we can step into the love and peace and joy that God already has for us. And we do that by being grateful. And so just starting your morning off. And so I'll go over this kind of morning rite and night rite outline at the end. But I just wanted to say, like, this is really like the beginning of really exercising your tools to transform yourself. When you have that big goal, it's going to be really hard to get there if you don't embody this gratefulness and this forgiveness here. Okay. The next one is making decisions. And so it's so important to make a decision in the direction of, the goals that we're called to. And so just like Daniel made the decision in the beginning that he was only going to eat certain foods. He wasn't going to eat the foods that the king gave him. And the truth of the matter is, if we're not making our own decisions, somebody else is making them for us. And so, some people, maybe we're not taught how to make good decisions, but it's important for us to make decisions that are founded on, wisdom and where we're led to go. And, on a really deeper note, decisions are actually beliefs, or our beliefs are actually decisions. For example, maybe you made the decision a long time ago that you were not enough. And so that translated into a belief that you have carried around that's probably not serving you, and that's not true. So it really is as simple as making new decisions that I am enough, and that, I am a conqueror. And then that immediately gives you the confidence to go forward into what you're called to do. And so this tool, making a decision, like, it may sound simple, but it's really making those decisions on a deep subconscious level, because if we don't make our own decisions, somebody else is going to make them for us. For example, I made the decision that I didn't want to be sick anymore. I had been sick since I was 12. I was sick 2 or 3 times a year, but I didn't quite know why. It wasn't until I was maybe 30 that I decided, hey, I don't want to be sick anymore. I just made the decision. I said, you know what? The doctors keep telling me I'm on maximum medicine and that I'll be on medicine for the rest of my life. But I just made the decision. I was like, I don't want to be sick anymore. And it's like, I could have made that decision when I was 13, but instead I was letting the doctors make the decision for me. But I just made the decision despite of what all the doctors said. And then once I made that decision, immediately the resources and tools came. And so until we make a decision, it's like the resources and what we need can't really come to us unless we make the decision and are open to it. So that brings us to the tool 3 is like actually setting those really God-sized intentions and writing them down. And so it's not always about so much the specific goal that we have, which is important for us to move in a direction. But what's more important is our intention, just because the way it plays out and the way it looks may be different than how we envision, but it serves the same intention, such as I was reading one of Priscilla Shire's book, who she had a friend who had visions that she was empowering women in conferences. She was discouraged when she didn't see that vision played out. However, she realized she was ministering to her teenage daughters a lot, like quite a bit. And so she was still empowering women, but in her living room. It just looked different, but it was the same intention. Okay. Number 4 is examining our beliefs. And so when I say beliefs, it's not just the beliefs that, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus. It's, I believe in the Bible. Like those are, at least for Christians, that's a given. These beliefs are what we hold on a deep subconscious level, such as, hey, I'm over 50 and I can't be hired for the job that I want. However, that is a belief and it's not founded on, we may think it's founding on truth based on what our surroundings are saying, but is that real truth and authenticity based on, what, what scripture says? And so it's just like Moses was called to lead people, but he had a stutter. Like for him, the belief was there's no way. There's no way I can lead people and I can't even speak well. And so he could, easily fall into that trap, or he can create a new belief that, hey, if God says this, then, I go. And so, and then it's also finding the evidence that, hey, that new belief that I'm embodying, evidence that it's true. For example, hey, I'm over 50 and it's really, hard to, I'll never get the job that I want. The new belief is, hey, I have a lot to offer. Of course, anybody would be willing to hire me. And then evidence that that's true. For example, the company I'm with, at least the last 15 people we've hired over the last year are all over 50 because we need experience in our world that we're in. Okay, so it's really examining our beliefs, really on a consistent basis. The next thing is really examining what's in our hearts. And so I really like, there's Priscilla Shire, which is Tony Evans' daughter, has a book where she explains this picture of, our spirit is perfect within us and wants to penetrate through us, but we could be harboring doubts and fear and pride and unforgiveness in our heart, which makes it very difficult for the spirit to freely move in our minds and in our hearts. And so it's really important that we do the work if we really want to step into our abundance and the life that we're called to have. So there's, thoughts on the conscious level, and on the subconscious level is really where our heart is. Things that are baked there that, if it's healthy, then we'll have healthy actions. If it's not healthy, then we won't have healthy actions. Another, our toolbox is we have, our 5 senses that all, encompass what's, physically outside of us. It's our feel, touch, taste, smell, hear. However, we do have other senses like imagination, the will, reason, memory, perception, and intuition. And so you can imagine if, we didn't as humans have imagination, it would have been really hard to have the book of Revelation. Just the imagination that was implanted into John to write it. The will is the ability to focus on something and then really tune out any distractions. And so it's having that goal and then tuning out everything else. Reason is the ability to really think, really put the pieces together and not just, looking at it from one way, but putting multiple pieces together to really come to, a new conclusion. Of course, memory, and then perception is how we look at things. And so we have a choice to look at things, as a blessing or as a curse, and then that affects our attitude. And then the other one, my favorite is, I like a quote that I've heard somebody use is, if prayer is us talking to God, intuition is God talking to us. So these are our other senses that that we live by internally instead of being guided by what's on the outside. The next tool is writing the script of you. So if you don't purposely determine who you want to be and who you want to be, like who you want to be on the inside, and really embodying that new identity. And so just like, when God called someone, he always gave them either a new name or a new identity or new strength. And we need to embody that. And at first it may not seem comfortable, but we have to do that. Like Moses, he was given, really this new identity. I can imagine by the time he was leading the Israelites, he likely didn't have, a stutter anymore. So many times we may live like, these are the same people, but we may live like this because of what everybody else says we are. And then we embody that. When in actuality, we could, live by our true identity of who we are and do that on purpose. And so a lot of times we're not intentional, but when you want to step into your abundance and your promised land, it's being intentional about all of these. Okay, the next one is we have the option to actually choose freedom. Like so many times we think that we're a victim to our circumstance, but we have the ability to actually choose freedom. And so I love the way this explains just how humans work in general. And so just like the Israelites, they were in bondage. They were living as slaves, and that's just what they were used to. That's what we say is like our ex. And then, Moses, implanted an idea like, okay, what if we actually left Egypt? Like, what if we weren't slaves anymore? So this is like a why idea. But what happens with humans, and that's just how we are wired, it's there because, when we were hunters and gatherers, it was there to protect us, to help us know that, being chased by lions and tigers and bears was not normal. So this kind of fear was actually there to protect us. However, we live in a different time where we don't have to be chased by lions and tigers and bears, but the things that we're called to do, it may feel like lions and tigers and bears, but it's actually just our normal human brains protecting us, where it gets chaotic when we have this new idea. Like, oh, I'm a slave, but you want me to step into a wilderness? I'd rather just be a slave, which is what most people do, and they bounce back. Or you can step into the unknown, and that's really where your freedom is. And so it was really unknown for a lot of the Israelites to experience freedom, but it is actually better than being in bondage and being a slave. And so the issue is, these habits of worry and doubt do impose fear in your heart, which then manifests itself as anxiety, depression. And so we actually have the choice to stay in ignorance, this is actually addictive. Being in this worry and doubt and fear and anxiety is addictive, because it's what we're used to, is what's normal. And so we want to always come back to normal, like always come back to our normal set point. But we do have a choice that if we study and if we understand, we don't have to live by fear, we can live by faith and well-being. And so if we want to experience well-being in our body, it's something we probably haven't experienced before because we've been living in anxiety, but we have to be willing to teach our minds and our hearts to experience something different, faith, and then it comes out as well-being. Of course, James, when you think about, faith in action. So our next tool is, it's now that we're kind of like moving in that direction. So when our heart is healthy, we start having healthy habits and doing healthy actions. When it's almost becomes automatic. And so you may think that, it's a struggle to step into what you're called to do, but when everything is in alignment, it's actually easy because, well, I want to say it may not be easy, but it's just it feels more natural once your heart is aligned with what is healthy. It becomes natural that your body starts to do things that are healthy. The next thing is your attitude. And so you're really believing for that big thing, or that, hey, like you're working as, a secretary, but you want to really be an actress. That's where your gifts are called to. You're aligning your attitude with being an actress, and maybe not with being a secretary where you are, which actually doesn't cost anything to, simply change your thoughts, T, feelings, F, and actions. And so now you're actually teaching your mind, your heart, and your body to act in accordance with that new identity. And so attitude is a composite of all three: thoughts, feelings, and your actions, and aligning them with that new identity that you're embodying. Because to be honest, it's really about becoming someone new before you actually see it in your physical. So if we already, for example, if it was your goal to be a millionaire, if you already embodied those new ideas, you already be a millionaire. So it's really becoming, really aligning our thoughts, feelings, and actions with that person we were created to be. And a lot of times it's getting all of that false code that we've been bombarded with from a young age, and like getting that out. The next one is, your next tool is really to lead, and especially like leading yourself. And knowing that, good leaders lead by praise. Like people follow them because they want to, not because they're forced to. And so many times, especially according to society, we think that we need to kind of force it because that's what we're used to seeing. But people, like great leaders, people follow them because they want to. And it's actually being, a good follower first, which then helps you be a good leader. This one is really powerful. It's leaving everyone with the impression of increase. And it may sound, it may not make sense on a logical level if you decide to pay for the person behind you when you're in the Starbucks drive-through. But you see people doing that because they understand, what they're giving and what they're putting out will come back to them. It would boomerang back to them. Just like in Luke 6:38. It may not come from the same person, but really that good energy that they're putting out, they will also receive energy back. And so it's really being intentional about leaving everyone we come in contact with the impression of increase. The last one I wanted to go over for today is surrounding yourself with community, and particularly people that are in alignment with like what you really want to do. We were meant to be communal beings, and we weren't meant to, go at it on our own. And so in the beginning of when you're embarking on this faith journey, it may feel lonely. When the Wright brothers were inventing, the first airplane, it may have seemed lonely. People may have thought they were crazy, but I mean, as soon as, they got it to work, can you just imagine all the people that flocked around them to help really make it a success? And so there may not be much people around. They may have their doubts, but you don't have to embody that. And soon enough, they will come. And there may be few people at first, but it will grow. Because we were meant to create. We're all creative. And we were meant to, invent something new because we're all unique. So it's all about really, expressing our uniqueness, that we all have that unique idea or that unique niche that we're meant to fulfill. And that's where our abundance lies, is in our uniqueness. Okay, so that brings us to the close of the presentation. And I like to invite you. I know I went through that pretty quickly. So I went through that in about 35 minutes. And, to embody these, it's really a journey. It's really taking it one step at a time. And I like to invite you on a journey as well to um, really pour into you. And so, as I mentioned, so I have this form that if you could help me to fill out so that I get your feedback and understand, what's the best way to help you in your journey and understand, what resonated with you from the presentation. And so I will send everyone this form for them to fill out. And I'll also place it here in the chat. And as I mentioned in the beginning about this morning right and night right. So as soon as you fill out the form for me, I will send you. Okay, so this morning right and this night right, it gives you basically a template for starting out your day, for starting out your morning, which I think is really important. Give me 1 second. And so it really helps to align, even when you're not sure, when you're not sure what to do. And second. Okay. So this I have been following for the last, so I am on day 73 of using this template. And I kid you not, there has been so much more alignment in my brain and my life and what I need to do, so much more clarity just by following this rhythm in the morning. And so it starts out with definitely, of course, like I said, always, giving gratitude and thanks in the morning. And then just, taking care of our physical body so that our minds can be more open. So I read something that having a glass of like room temperature water in the morning actually can help prevent like a plethora of diseases. Um, to be honest, I haven't looked at all the research papers, but I just keep reading about, successful people and what they do in the morning. They all start with water. And so we get so dehydrated during the night, like just taking care of our bodies in the morning and then doing like a stretch, something low impact to really expand and open yourself up physically. Because I know I guess maybe it's the way I sleep. I wake up kind of clammed in. And so giving your body the opportunity to expand and stretch out a bit, it also helps your mind and your body kind of move in that right direction. It doesn't have to be very long, but just being intentional about stretching out so that now, okay, your body's taken care of. You can now focus on what you need to focus on for the day. The next part is worship and gratitude. So, listening to a worship song or writing one, and then writing 10 things that you are grateful for, really on a deep level. It could be as simple as, you're thankful for your dog. You're thankful for, your limbs, for your legs. It's just when we are so used to living in a life of shame and guilt, having gratitude immediately takes you to closer to, the way that God thinks on love, peace, and joy. And so that's where we want to go anyway. And so intentionally like being grateful and getting in that habit puts you on that really frequency. Of course, like reading your daily like scripture and reflection. And then having some like either quoting scripture that you write every day, some affirmation or prayer. This is just one that I have been writing out. Like I said, I'm on day 73. And I just wanted to see what would happen. What if I did, the same thing for 90 days? And honestly, from where I am now versus where I was 73 days ago, I can't even recognize, like, it's not that I was doing bad things. I just may not have been doing the best things that are best for me. I may not have been associating with the people that are best for me. They're not bad people, but just, clearing some things out and bringing more good things in has just allowed lots of clarity. And it's just, asking for direction. And I just laid out every area of life. And I've seen piece by piece every area for me just come into better order. And that's what it's all about, just better each and every day. So many times, yes, we're striving for perfection, but honestly, there's already perfection inside of us. It's just expressing that. And so we're looking to be better just each and every day, one step at a time. And then, as I mentioned in the beginning, it is very important that we write out, that goal that we have. And so not many people actually write out their goal. Yes, they have a goal to get a new house or to get a new job, but do they actually write it down? And so it's, taking something that's, in our brains and putting it down on the physical makes it just more tangible, more real. And it's like, what would happen if we actually wrote it down for 90 days? And so please, by filling out the form, I will be able to, get your feedback more easily about, how can I partner with you on your faith journey? And I will then send you this morning, right? Okay. And yes, for me to send you the link, so it is a Google form. If it's okay, yes, I will send you this form. And yes, that is all that I have at the moment. I really thank everybody for coming. And like I said, filling out the form will definitely help me understand your feedback for today and help me understand how I can better partner with you in the future. And let me send, yeah. Here's the form. And then if you have like any issues with it, so I put it in the chat. Just please let me know. And I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day. And I thank everybody for the comments in the chat. And that's it. I will be sending out the recording as well. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a beautiful day. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me.
Good night.
Bye.